What's good, y'all? It's your host, Kios, the Ronin Beatmaker, here with a Ronin review, Netflix's limited series, American Primeval, Ep.1, directed by Peter Berg and written by Mark L. Smith. If you're new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Let's get into it. Now, if you peeped my trailer reaction, you'll know I was very excited for this show. And it does not disappoint. The cinematography is stellar and phenomenal. If you've seen the movie The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio, then you'll appreciate the cinematography because if I remember correctly, the co-creator or co-writer of The Revenant is the co-creator of this miniseries. If you've seen the show Hell on Wheels, then you'll appreciate, especially The Revenant, the level of detail and commitment to the brutality and the hostility of that time period and how people lived. It was not a very clean time period. To be frank, Americans back then were not very clean. I would argue it probably hasn't really changed all that much. But they don't dispense with showing the fact that the butcher is also the blacksmith, and you see him, you know, pulling the guts out of a pig. You see the decrepit and the brutality of the way people are living and interacting with one another. The violence is, they do not shy away from the violence. They really clearly wanted to depict how brutal and savage man was towards one another at that time, especially towards women and children as well. So don't think they shy away from women and children. They show you how brutal it was for anyone. This is during the 1857, during the height of the Mormon spread in the Wyoming territories and the encroachingness of the American government, as well as the conflict with the various native tribes. So you have a culmination of a cauldron that is just festering to explode. And they do a very good job of really taking time, and especially through the violence and even through the casual conversations, establishing the political and social and cultural climate of the frontier lands at that time. And the best part about it is we get to see it through the eyes of a single mother and her young disabled son, who are from Philadelphia. They're from the city. They're city dwellers, and they're now have thrusted themselves into the western frontier, where violence and cunning and savagery is the law of the land. So they really, it's a very fun way to explore this world. Normally when we watch, Western shows or movies, it's always depicted through, like, the silent lone ranger, the brooding loner, the mixed breed Indian who can't seem to figure out, is he an Indian, or is he, a white man, that kind of world. And actually, I read a very fascinating book. Man, when I was working in the school systems, oh man, it was about a young white boy who gets taken in by a tribe, and it's about his experiences growing up in the tribe and then getting rehabilitated back into American society in the 1800s. It's a very fascinating book. If I could remember the name, I would tell you guys to take a read of it. It's not that bad. I don't know, maybe like I don't know, maybe like 200 pages or less, maybe 100 pages. It's an old book, but it's good. I know I'm ranting a little bit here, getting off topic. But, to wrap up this non spoiler part of the segment, I would like to say that this show, if you are into um, time period films, time period shows, they do this one justice. They do it accurate. They stay true to that time period. They don't shy away from the violence, the gore, the savagery. So please check this show out. And you know what? Stick along with me. I'm going to be watching it weekly. It already came out, but I like to do it weekly. I'm old school like that. Screw this whole excuse me. Fuck off the whole let's binge it. I hate binging. I used to be into binging. I'm tired of binging. I want to take it time, watch the show, digest it. It may not be weekly. You might get, I might do an episode weekly, and then you might get another one over the weekend, which is more than likely the case. Um, and it's only 6 episodes. And I think, doing something like this, it's better for us all to kind of enjoy it, take some time to digest it, share your comments down below, what you like about it, any historical inaccuracies, what are your highlights, and we get to be excited about it. I was hoping that it was going to be released weekly. I feel like if Netflix released their shows weekly, they'd probably see better numbers on their streaming, something they really don't want to reveal. And also, I feel like shows would last longer on Netflix. If they would release them weekly, they can better gauge how people are into the shows. And on top of that, shows that are actually pretty good might actually have a chance of actually having a longevity because people are actually looking forward to returning back to seeing the show. And people might actually want to buy a new Netflix subscription. I mean, Netflix, if you need some help with, business practices, yo, Ronin's right here. I'm helping. Yo, just give me a nice check. Give me a nice spot in the, just give me a corner office. Like a third floor, or fifth floor, corner office. All right. And give me a nice view. Yo, I will turn Netflix around. But I digress. Let us get into spoilers. So, for those of you who have seen episode 1, let's get into it. As I said before, it's 1857. It's the height of the pioneer Western expansion. You got the crosshairs between the Mormons. You got the indigenous Americans. You got the outlaws. You got the cults. You got the aliens, cowboys and aliens. I'm just having fun. But, it's crazy time. It's a wild time. And you have this governor who seems to be butting heads with the president. We're introduced to a single mother, Sarah, and her young son, Devin. Looks like he's a native boy, mixed. He's wearing a brace on his leg, so he's disabled. I think it's an interesting touch. I like that. And it plays in really well later on into the episode, actually. They've been waiting at this train station for a minute now. It's currently being built. They're located in Missouri, and they're heading to Utah to meet her husband and his father. And they're from Philadelphia, like I said, city folk. And they finally get it to Fort Bridger. During that time, the man who guided them there turns out he left. Well, no, the man who was going to take them to Utah, he left because they were late. And the guy who got them to Fort Bridger, he's saying that he can help them out. And at this time, there's a crazy Frenchman talking. No one knows what he's saying. The escort was his name, John. He shoves the Frenchman to tell him to get away. The Frenchman pulls out his revolver and kills John right there in front of the mom and the kid, and they start freaking out. They're at this fort at the frontiers. It's dirty, it's rancid, it's violent. They just watch the man guide them get shot in cold blood, and then the Frenchman gets string up. It's what she's just crying, freaking out. What was she told? She was told that it was the frontier. Fort Bridger was a peaceful and docile place. and Bridger, who built the fort, he's like, yeah, honey, I don't know what they were smoking. It ain't out there. It's not how it is out here in the frontier. Oh my lord. He explains to her, like, listen, there's a war between uh, the Mormons and the president and the Indians, and the president has sent troops down here to deal with the unrest. And essentially, he's like, listen, there are the mountains, storms brewing. Ain't no way you're getting there without getting killed. That's essentially what he said. And this woman is like, I don't give a fuck. Get me someone to get me to Utah. And he's like, all right, I got one guy. Uh, I got one guy. The dude nearly kills Bridger, the head of the fort. And she asks, his name is Isaac Reed. And she's like, listen, I'll give you $750 to guide me. And listen, man, this motherfucker is living worse than the maggots. And he's like, no, I'm good. And Bridger's like, my dude, there are pigs that live better than you. And he's like, no, I'm good. I'm good. And so she's pissed. So she ends up back at the fort. She encounters a Mormon group that's heading to um, some covenant group, some community. She's able to convince them to let her tag along. She tag alongs with them. At one point, she's talking with one of the wives, and the woman goes, Sarah, she goes to the wife, we live in a world that does not favor women to live on their own. And the Mormon wife responds, that's why we get married. And it's an interesting sentiment, but it still holds a test of time. Excuse me. Even now, there are moments where, I'm, I'll be, taking care of my mom, going over to her place, running errands with her, dealing with things, and she'll be like, "You go talk to them, okay? They'll listen to you because they're a man." And the funny thing about it is, like, as much as modern women like to pretend that that's not the case, in the end, men are more likely to take another man seriously than a woman. Um, and more likely not to fuck over a man more than likely than a woman. But that it's I'm not going to get into the merits of it, but it's funny because at that time period, a woman on her own was seen as vulnerable. She was seen as dead weight. Um, she was seen as easy to take advantage of. So I think it's interesting that that reminder of that being married at that time period, you were less of a burden to society, which is interesting when you look at the way society is now, where single mothers are more of a burden to society. Uh, fight me on it in the comments. Leave me your thoughts, your criticisms. But I'm just sharing my feelings on this at the moment. But let's continue. Um, they're traveling, Sarah and Devin traveling with a caravan. Um, we then get to a native camp. We see this drunk, fat native man. He's just, burlying and, you know, breathing heavy and stumbling into his teepee. His wife is like, "Hey, come to bed with me. Come on, come on. I know you want some." And he's like, "Nah, I want the daughter." So he goes to assault his daughter. He's about to take advantage of her. She pulls out a knife, stabs him in the neck twice. It's crazy, and then in the chest. Impressive. And then the mother starts yelling at her, "What did you do? What did you do?" And then it turns out the daughter is she's a mute, so she can't speak. And then she just takes off running into the wilderness. And then we cut back to the Mormon caravan, and it's getting close to nightfall, and Sarah tells Devin to go get a blanket. So he heads into the back, and lo and behold, the native girl is in the back. And he doesn't reveal that to his mom, and he says, "Hey, you're safe here." Grabs a blanket, heads back up to the front. Then we cut back to the fort, with a bounty hunter who stumbles into town, heads up to Fort Bridger, talks to the head of the fort, says, "Hey, I'm looking for this chick named Sarah uh, Holloway. That's her real name. Killed a man and is now wanted for money for murder up east." The fort head of the fort, he says, "Hey, never seen him," but a bunch of gang members, a bunch of thugs, they catch wind of this, and then we cut back to the caravan, and yeah, we cut back. Wait, hold on. Did we cut back to the caravan? Yeah, we cut back to the caravan, and then it turns out a bunch of the governor's militia, but they're clearly, I guess, I'm not sure if they're the National Guard or they're the military, but they work under the governor. And he heads up to the caravan, and this guy who's the head of the military for the governor is like, "Listen, you guys don't have a permit to be on this land. Y'all are Mormons. Y'all are freaks. Get out of here, or there's going to be trouble." Caravan says, "Piss off." The militia captain's like, "All right, bet." Later on that day, an arrow goes right through the head of one of the Mormon women. It was phenomenally, incredibly crazy. The caravan gets assaulted. Jacob, who is the head of the Mormon caravan, who we met earlier, he gets his head nearly scalped off. Uh, Violence ensues. Sarah and Devin are running, arrows flying, bullets flying, guns splurting. It looks like they're getting attacked by bandits. One of the bandits kills a man, and then he kills another man, but it turns out it's a little boy that he kills. And then he gets ran over by a horse as he starts crying, holding the kid's body. It's crazy. The whole thing was crazy. Women are getting kidnapped. Um, Sarah and Devin head to the woods. The governor's men, they're dressed like Indians and bandits. Isaac is there, takes out one of the bandits. They're able to hide from the riders that are after them. We head back to the caravan that's getting massacred. They're finishing off all the men. 5 of the women are captured. They're all the Mormon women. Um, the governor's man, he tells them, "Hey, give them to the natives. Tell them to have their way with them, and then finish them off when they're done." We're then brought back to the bounty hunter, who's made a bet with the local thugs. They end up stabbing him in the back. No pun intended. We then return back to the captured women. We covered that. Um, we're then brought back to the caravan, and it turns out Jacob, who nearly got scalped, is still alive. So now we're gonna get a really good revenge story. Oh, and in the chaos, the little native mute girl, she's able to escape. Uh, so we now have three different stories. We got the Jacob and no, we got Jacob the Mormon, who's now looking for his wife, who was taken by the the natives and the bandits. We got what's his name? We got Isaac, Sarah, and Devin. They're on the run. And we got the native girl who made it out. So we got three different stories. And it's clear that all three stories are going to collide. So I'm really excited for it. This is a really great show. Can't wait to peep episode 2. Phenomenal show. Shout out to director Peter Berg and writer Mark L. Smith. They did a great job. This show is top notch. And I'm glad that it's a mini series. Sometimes I hope they keep it as a mini series. Sometimes they do these really good shows and they try to do them like 3, 4, 5 seasons. It's like, nah, sometimes just tell a middle, beginning, and an end. And sometimes you can do it in 6 to 10 episodes if you got the right people, the right writers, the right director, the right producers, the whole 10 yards, 9 yards, whatever it is. But honestly, do not sleep on this miniseries. It's clearly good, and I cannot wait to see how these stories collide. If you've made it this far, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And leave a comment with your thoughts below. And make sure to leave some constructive criticism, as that'll help me and the channel grow. And until next time, stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love.